fantasy move for a 5-0 team right
That's
there.
right. I'm staying on top of it.
God, I hope Ray didn't win. Adam Thielen's had a great year.
Put it here this time, hopefully. We tried to do it last time.
Now recording on my phone.
Sal commented on our Instagram post.
Do this to yourself.
But it's off the tracks. You know how it goes. It's gonna be a fun one tonight.
It's off the tracks. Jet, it's Rafe. We're back. Big night last night. I mean, if there were any, I was listening. I went on a walk this morning. We were listening to the Bill Simmons podcast, and they brought up a pretty good point of. I mean, has there been a day where that many hearts around the NBA have just all broken at once? A lot of news yesterday. Jason Tatum, he goes down with an injury. Has anything official come out about what it is exactly yet?
I haven't seen anything yet. I mean, I'm sure something will come out at some point today, but yeah, nothing official yet.
And then on top of all of that, Dallas, San Antonio, Philadelphia. That's your top three in the NBA
Just how
draft.
everybody predicted it.
Right. There was a Dallas had a 1.8% chance of winning this lottery. There was a 0.0014% chance of this being the top three or four, whatever it had been. Look, listen. All right, I don't want to say that this stuff's rigged. Okay, I just don't. But I think that there's a lot of, there's a lot of arguments for it. There's certainly a lot of arguments for it, not just in this one. Dallas trades their star player away, and they're gifted the number 1 overall pick. Now, mind you, they trade their star player away to a big market Los Angeles team. There's a lot of, and I've seen them on Twitter, and I've seen people talking, New Orleans. No one was buying that franchise. And then the year that the franchise was bought, they were gifted the number 1 overall pick to take Anthony Davis. LeBron to Cleveland, Patrick Ewing to the Knicks, Derrick Rose to Chicago. The year that LeBron comes back to Cleveland, they get the number 1 overall pick. There's so many areas where you can say, you know what? This might there's a little steam to these takes. Dallas gets the number 1 overall pick. Rafe, just kind of not necessarily initial thoughts. We did that yesterday. You've gotten to sleep on this a little bit. You've gotten to think about it. What are your thoughts, not only on Dallas getting the number 1 overall pick, but this top three as a whole?
Well, Dallas is back. Whatever feelings the fans had about what the franchise was going to be in the future are gone. Kind of in a similar way that Lakers fans were like, well, where do we go from here after LeBron leaves and they get gifted Luka? The Mavs fans go, well, where do we go from here once Kyrie's older, AD's older? Where do we go from here? Well, here's Cooper Flagg. So all those questions have been answered now for Dallas. We'll see how it looks. I would imagine this looks pretty deadly. Cooper Flagg, Anthony Davis, Kyrie when he's back healthy. And then San Antonio, I think San Antonio has a lot of interesting options here with the 2 pick. Maybe they don't sit and pick. We'll see. And then Philadelphia, once again, at the top of the draft. Trust the process, I guess.
Are we doing that again? Are we restarting the process?
This process feels a lot better than the original process because you've got some nice pieces there. Outside of the whole Joel mess and whatever happens there is still a good team. So this process feels a bit more, close to the finished product.
We'll get to Philadelphia in a moment, but I do want to start at the top, and I do want to start with the Dallas Mavericks, who seemingly all signs point to they have landed Cooper Flagg. I'm intrigued by this, and we can talk about trades in a moment, but where exactly does Cooper Flagg, I don't want to say where does he fit in with this team, because Cooper Flagg fits on any roster. He's realistically probably the best prospect of our lifetime. I would argue, you can have Wembanyama in there. Anthony Davis, I think, is a good argument as well. But I don't know if those two are as complete all-around players as what you're seeing from Cooper Flagg, and that's my opinion. But I mean, timeline-wise, if you're comparing Cooper Flagg into this team, Kyrie Irving is realistically. I mean, we've seen this story before with Kyrie Irving. It kind of feels like maybe he doesn't play next year. If not, he's not going to be back till later. Outside of that, you've got Anthony Davis, who he's had his fair share of injuries. The only really young player on this roster, I mean, you'd have Derek Lively, maybe Daniel Gafford. I'm not really sure his age off the top of my head. As far as I don't want to say rebuild, because Dallas was never, they were going in the direction of a rebuild, which we talked about last night. But this kind of rebuild, and I will call, I'll just use that word as a filler. I mean, the question answers itself because it's Cooper Flagg. It's easy to build around Cooper Flagg, but in what direction do they go? Do they make a trade to kind of try and pair someone up that with Cooper Flagg? Maybe they move a Gafford or a Lively. Maybe they go deeper into that roster and package some picks in the future to really solidify this young core.
Possibly. I mean, the interesting thing about all this is whoever, most of the teams that had a chance to get the number 1 pick and they draft Cooper Flagg, he is the best player on the roster already. Like day one of summer training camp, he is the best player on the roster. I think there's an argument here with a healthy Anthony Davis. Maybe he's not the best, and obviously Kyrie there as well. And Dallas, he's not. So like fit-wise for Cooper, I mean, obviously he can do whatever he wants on the basketball floor. He can assume different roles. So you don't really have to worry about scheming him into the game plan because he'll fit whatever hole you need. So it's just it's a good team already, and it's a great player. In terms of like trading, I don't know. I think maybe a small move to kind of minimize the injury issues they have right now and kind of hold them over until they can get fully healthy. Possibly something there, but outside of that, I mean, it's a really good team whenever they're healthy. So I wouldn't say that there's any big blockbuster moves, and I would say Nico probably wants to sit on this roster as much as he can to make everybody feel like he was a genius, and not have to make any more huge moves, which would be the smart thing. We'll see. I mean, Smart and Nico Harrison, I think, haven't been said in the same sentence for the past couple months. So I wouldn't see any big moves made. They won the lottery. That's literally won the lottery. In life, Nico Harrison won the lottery of life here. So you take it and you smile.
So, I mean, you look at this roster a little bit and you look at how Cooper Flagg fits in. He's 6'9", 205. He's grown, and I think he's grown an inch in the last month or so. Granted, he just turned 18 years of age, so of course he's still going to be growing. He's still going to, I mean, he is not set in stone physically, but you've got Anthony Davis, who's 6'10". You have Derek Lively, who is supposed to probably be the center for your future. He's at 7'1". Daniel Gafford's at 6'10". Do you see maybe Cooper Flagg coming in here and playing at the 3 moving forward in Dallas?
I think it's very much a possibility. It's something that initially I was thinking of talking to some of our friends about this after the order was announced. Is like this could be like a huge front court team. Like you listed all the guys that they have there in the front court and the positions they can play. I think another key to this though is something that is even more important is the lineup versatility they will be able to have. I think that's something you've seen from teams like Cleveland, like OKC, who they can play double big, but they can also play smaller. And that's something that I think is really important in the playoffs. You have different matchups in different rounds. So that's something, maybe you can move Cooper to the 4, maybe even the 5, depending if you play like a Warriors team who likes to run Draymond at the 5 or, something like that. So I think the lineup versatility that they'll be able to have now is even more important than them being able to play super big, which they will be able to do.
It's interesting because I don't question Cooper Flagg on the offensive side of the floor as the 4 at all. I think he stretches the floor out. I think he can get to the rim at a really high level. He can shoot the ball well. But my questions with Cooper Flagg is will he be able to guard a 4, a true 4, a true 6'10", 6'11" 4? And I think he would do fine. He played. I thought he played good defense in college at Duke. He was a tremendous help defender. That was very evident. He's long. Um, so that's my concerns. I think with Cooper Flag playing the 4, and I think that's something that would almost take care of itself a little bit. I think he would be fine. But I think if you play him at the 3 and you run a lineup where you've got Anthony Davis at the 4 and you've got Derek Lively at the 5. I mean, you're going to have 3 guys in the lineup that's 6'9" or taller. You're going to have Klay Thompson that's on the wing a little bit, and then you eventually can bring Kyrie Irving back into this. And that's an insane lineup. I mean, that is an unbelievable lineup. That is a lineup that can compete for a championship. This team's only going to continue to add to their depth in the offseason. I personally, going into this year, before the Luka trade, I was such a huge fan of this Mavericks team. They were my pick to win the NBA championship because I thought they had a lot more depth than a lot of other teams in the Western Conference. Obviously, Oklahoma City has more depth than them, but outside of that, I didn't really see anyone else that competed with them in that aspect. So I think you're adding a guy like Cooper Flag to this. You're going to be able to run an 8-9 man rotation, and you're going to be fine with that. So that's my thing. I think obviously the pick is Cooper Flag. Nico Harrison has done some interesting things over the last few months, but this is about as sure as something can get, is drafting Cooper Flag here. The question is, and I want to kind of maybe go back to that timeline, and I want to just throw it out here. And I don't necessarily think that this is I don't think this is what they should do. But is there any thought of trading this pick with anyone for a superstar, say Giannis Antetokounmpo?
I think Giannis is the only guy you even think about doing that with. But I mean, there's just no way. You look at what you'll have to pay Giannis. You can get Cooper. I mean, obviously Cooper Flag is not a Giannis Antetokounmpo type talent yet, but the contract's going to be way less. You've got a young star there, a potential, like literally, like I said, you have a chance. Giannis, you bring him in, it kind of, it lengthens your window a little bit, but he's a bit older, not too old. I think 32, maybe somewhere around there. So, I think in this instance, you default to age and contract, and obviously the big advantage there is to Cooper Flag. I just don't see any world where they trade this. I know jokes and memes will probably be made about this up until the draft night of them potentially trading this pick. But there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah, it wouldn't make sense. I mean, you've seen teams like Brooklyn, you've seen teams like Phoenix, where they've got these pretty young cores, and you feel like you're going in the right direction, and then they just give that all up for the star player. I think that absolutely Dallas should stick and pick here at 1. That's not a hot take by any means. That's the consensus decision. Another option, I think, and this kind of bridges into San Antonio here. If San Antonio, we talked about this a little bit in our pre-lottery segment yesterday. Depending on where San Antonio gets placed in the lottery, do they trade up? Do they try and trade up for number 1? Well, now they're at number 2. Is this in the cards anywhere for them to maybe move up a pick? And what would they have to package in there? What would that deal kind of look like for them to move up to number 1?
I don't know if they're able to move up to number 1. I think just because Cooper's so ahead of everybody else in this class, it's such a big drop off from 1 to 2, and that's no disrespect to who's projected to go 2 and 3. That's just how good Cooper Flag is. I mean, what would they have to give up for? If I'm Nico and I'm even considering it, I'm starting the conversation with Victor. I mean, that's what I'm starting the conversation with. They obviously say no, but I feel like it's got to be a deal of that kind of magnitude for me to even think about hopping off this pick. I mean, San Antonio's not going to offer Victor Wembanyama, obviously, but I think they offer Victor. I think you jump at that deal. Outside of that, I mean, a ton of firsts, like 6, 7 first rounders, maybe. If you can even, I know you can't trade back-to-back year first round picks, so I don't know how many years you could get out with that and pick swaps, and I'm sure there's a way to manipulate it, but there's no deal. Now, there's other moves I think the Spurs can make and have a chance to make here, but getting up to number one, Dallas is picking number one. They're taking Cooper Flag. That's going to be
Right.
it.
I mean, for me, it would take. I would have to get Stephon Castle. I would have to get both
Yeah.
your first round picks this year. We'd have to look into next year. I don't have the Spurs, or the Spurs draft classes pulled up here, but I mean, I don't even want to. I feel like this is such a hypothetical, and it's not going to happen. But I think there are other things that I could totally see San Antonio moving out of this 2 spot. I think
Yep.
Dylan Harper is kind of the consensus number 2 pick there. I guess maybe you could slide Vassell to the 3 and go Harper at the 2. I mean, he said 6'6", I don't know. It would be interesting to see in what direction they go there. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of directions they can go with 2, and that's why I think it's so interesting is because I hate to go back to Giannis, but I feel like if the Spurs wanted to, what would that package look like to bring Giannis in, including the number 2 pick?
I would say the number 2 pick, their other first round pick this year. I don't have contracts and everything in front of me, so I don't know, what players you'd have to throw in there. But they have a good start to put together a pretty good deal, an intriguing deal for Milwaukee to take a look at here. I think it makes a lot of sense for the Spurs because of their depth at their guard position right now, with Dylan Harper projected to go number 2. You don't necessarily need another guard right now, and I think Giannis fits perfectly for the Spurs and can alleviate a lot of the pressure on a young Victor Wembanyama right now. So it starts with the 2 first round picks this year. Again, don't have contracts in front of me. You'll have to make the money make sense. You'll have a little leeway if you do it in the offseason, but they're in a good spot to try and put the deal together here.
And the thing with San Antonio making a deal there, in the event that this would happen with Milwaukee, the Bucks are in no position to have any leverage in this trade at all. They don't have their own first round draft pick till 2031. So there could be a world where the Spurs, rather than having to trade multiple young pieces that they already have on this roster, to trade away future draft capital and say, you know what, you guys don't have a lot of draft picks coming up. Here's a few. So I think that I think that that's an interesting conversation. I think if they do stick and pick, I think it will be Dylan Harper, who I think he's going to be a really good basketball player. I think he would fit right into the system. I think he's going to be a system player. I question his ball handling a little bit. I think he's going to be more of a spot-up shooter. So I think that your first 2 picks are pretty locked in here. Although, I would really be intrigued, and I don't know how many people are talking about this. I would really be intrigued by a guy like VJ Edgecombe being on this team, who's very athletic, fills up the stat sheet, had a really good freshman season at Baylor. And it feels like San Antonio, I really think once people start bringing in VJ Edgecombe into pre-draft workouts, once they start taking an even closer look at Edgecombe than they already have, I think a lot more teams are going to fall in love with him. I don't really think he'll fall past 3 with the Sixers, and we'll talk about that in a moment. I don't think he'll fall past 3. I think he's better than Ace Bailey, and I think he's more of a sure thing than Ace Bailey. If I'm picking here, I would go Dylan Harper, but again, I'm not in the draft room. I'm not behind the scenes. I'm not, feels like San Antonio always has kind of their own take on things. I would not be surprised at all if VJ Edgecombe's the pick here at 2, but I think it'll be Dylan Harper.
Yeah, I think, I mean, this is just a guess, but I would say the first thing the Spurs are doing are looking for a deal. Obviously they're scouting, but I think the first inclination and priority 1 is to try and find a deal, mainly for Giannis. And then if that doesn't work and it falls through, then obviously I would say plan 2 is to pick a player here. I mean, you have the number 2 pick. That's not a bad consolation prize to not getting a deal done. But I would say priority 1 right now for San Antonio is finding a deal and working out a deal for Giannis.
Yeah, I could. I don't know. I think that when you have a guy like Giannis who's 31 and he doesn't shoot the ball that well, his main strength and trait is getting downhill. I think that gets dangerous the older you get. So I don't know. I really would if I'm San Antonio. I'm going to continue. You already have a phenomenal young core. You had the rookie of the year this past season. You've got Victor Wembanyama coming back. You just made a great trade for De'Aaron Fox. He's going to be there. That's a phenomenal player. You get a guy like Dylan Harper. You get a guy like VJ Edgecombe that's going to fit right in. He's going to slide right into the 2. Maybe if you want to play him or Vassell at the 3, whatever you want to do there. But you're building a very good roster here from top to bottom. I think they just need to settle down a little bit, continue to stay patient. And we're about to talk about Philadelphia, but for San Antonio, just trust this process a little bit, continue to play through it. I would say here at 2, and I would make my selection. A team that I think really should consider trading this pick would be Philadelphia. I think that it would be such a Daryl Morey thing to do, which, by the way, we haven't really talked about this much, is Daryl Morey was also kind of fighting for his job a little bit.
Yep.
While Dallas getting number 1 totally saved Nico Harrison's job, I don't know if 3 necessarily saved Daryl Morey's job, but if this pick would have went to Oklahoma City, totally different conversations would be had right now. But Philadelphia at 3, it would be a very Daryl Morey move to maybe take this, package a big contract on your roster right now, and make a big blockbuster trade to help your roster. And the thing with Philadelphia is, I mean, they've got Tyrese Maxey there. Outside of that, Jared McCain as well. But outside of those 2 guys, I mean, the future is not as bright as it once was in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and a lot of it just hinders on the Joel situation. It sucks, I don't think Joel is trying to miss games. I just think it's a lot of bad injury luck. But my dad always told me, your best availability or your best ability is availability. And whenever I was younger, I thought, no, that doesn't make sense. Your talent outweighs that. Sometimes you get bad injury, but it's true. It doesn't matter how talented you are if you can't be out there. And the older I've gotten, the more I've realized, yeah, that's absolutely right. So, in terms of what the Sixers do here, trade or pick, I don't know. I don't know. They could use some wing help, I think. Oubre has a player option after this year, but even if he picks that up, I think you can have a better upgrade there at the forward position. So, maybe Ace Bailey is a guy that they look at where it's a low floor but a high ceiling coming out of college. I think you can definitely see the upside there. But is it a guy that's going to come in and be that right away? Maybe not. Maybe there is an option to either trade back or just trade out of the draft or trade out of the first round completely. It'll be interesting to see what they do, though.
My issue with them at 3 is you're going to, assuming that it's Flag and Harper at 1 and 2, you're probably going to sit here and you're going to take one of VJ Edgecombe or Ace Bailey. And both of those players are not... they're not similar at all to where Flag and Harper, where I think they are both, certainly Flag, are going to be immediate impact players on a roster. Edgecombe and Bailey both, they still need to develop. They still need to find the tools a little bit. And I don't know if the 76ers, I mean, the track record shows they don't really develop their talent all that well. I don't know if this is really where they want to be right now. I mean, obviously picking at 3, you don't want to take that for granted. But if I'm really looking at this, would they almost be better off saying, you know what, take on Paul George's contract, I don't know if they'll trade Joel Embiid, but take on this contract and we'll give you the number 3 overall pick. Give us a contract or two back to balance it out a little bit, and we'll go from there. I feel like that might almost be, I don't want to say a better option, but it's certainly on the table for them right now.
It's on the table. It's just I don't know how many teams you're going to have bite at a Paul George or a Joel Embiid because of the injury issues. You know, and the Sixers aren't going to have a whole lot of flexibility as is with their money situation and the new CBA and how hard it is to make deals. I think it's alleviated a little bit in the offseason. You get a little bit more leeway. I'm not 100% sure on that, but it's going to be hard to move these guys if you want to get off of them. Now, obviously, we know what a healthy Joel could be and what a healthy Paul George can be. And on paper, you know, you get these guys healthy and you add a young guy at the top of this draft, they could be a playoff. They could be a 4 seed, a 3 seed in the East. They could be a team that you're talking about next year as, you know, in the playoffs right now where we stand right now and maybe contending for a championship. But it's such a big what if, and it's through the history has proven such a big what if. Like, I think if you have the opportunity to move off of one of those contracts to get yourself, you know, a little bit of breathing room to build out a roster, a more full roster, you do it. It's just I don't know how many teams out there are going to be taking that opportunity.
So should they stick and they pick at 3? A lot of people are projecting Ace Bailey here. Now, the issue with Ace Bailey is I don't really know if I'm not all that high on Ace Bailey, and I think a lot of that was just, I mean, he played at Rutgers. That offense was absolutely abysmal. It was terrible. Rutgers as a whole, it was literally Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. There was nothing else on that team. Jeremiah Williams didn't play as well as he was supposed to play. There was nothing on that roster outside of these two guys. So you didn't really get to have necessarily a great gauge on these guys' talent and how well they can perform in the NBA. Obviously, you saw what you saw out of Dylan Harper. He's a phenomenal player. I think Ace Bailey has all the potential in the world. I just don't know if he's going to be the all-around complete player that you want to take at number 3. That's kind of my drawback with him. I think for Philadelphia, I'd be really interested to see them going Con Knippel. I think he's the next really. I think we talked about this last night, but Con Knippel is such a he'll fit in any roster in this league. He is going to be the next 3-and-D guy. He reminds me a lot of I think John Rothstein had tweeted something out about this at the beginning of the year, but he's a lot like Reed Shepherd from last season, who now plays with Houston. He went number 3 overall to Houston. I think he's still got a very bright future. But Con Knippel, I think he is not going to be a guy that sticks out during pre-draft workouts and you know combine numbers. He's just not going to be a guy that sticks out. But if I was wanting a surefire here at number 3 with Flagg and Harper off the board, a surefire, this guy's going to come in, he's going to shoot the ball really well for us. He's a scrappy player. He's going to go grab offensive rebounds for us when he needs to. He's at 6'7". He's going to play really good defense for us. I'm totally 100% considering Con Knippel here to pair with Tyrese Maxey, Jared McCain, and hopefully a healthy Joel Embiid. And if you can get a healthy Joel Embiid and you can pair Con Knippel in there, I think that's a really good roster. I think that is much better than the 24 games they won this past season. And there's structure there as well. There is a core. There is a foundation to build further if you want to move on from Embiid. And when you certainly do move on from Paul George, there's a foundation there with those 3 guys.
Yeah, honestly, I think Con Knippel is the best fit for the Sixers at this pick if they want to pick somebody, especially if they're sticking with this roster, which they probably will. I don't assume that they trade any of these top payroll guys that they have. If they stick with this roster and they want to, build out a full team, a full, rotation here. I think Konkanippel is a great option. Somebody that can come off the bench but also can play minutes alongside Joel or alongside Paul George and kind of alleviate some of the pressure from the outside. And like you said, do a lot of the dirty work that makes winning teams. So I do think that is the best fit here for them. You can also make the argument that you take the high upside pick, and if you do stick with this roster and they have a little bit of time, if you're healthy, that you have a little bit of time to develop them and you don't need them right away. But I think they should go Konkanippel here. And it'll be interesting to see how high these teams have him rated. I know a lot of teams like to go high upside first, but it'll be interesting to see where he falls in this draft.
Speaking of falling, we kind of bring up our first team here that really did not have a good night. Our first heartbroken team. These top three teams, they were ecstatic last night. They had a great night. But you look at Charlotte, who's picking number 4, who was tied for the best odds to land the number 1 pick. In fact, the 3 teams that had the best odds to land the number 1 pick fell at 4, 5, and 6. But we talk Charlotte here. This is really the first time that you mentioned it earlier when we were talking about Dallas, is Cooper Flagg would have been the best player on any of these 3 teams immediately, more than likely. You can make the argument Utah with Lauri Markkanen and John Collins. But Charlotte, he probably would have been next to, if not the best player on this team. So now Charlotte, I still think it's not as good of a spot as you were hoping to be in. It should have been in. But you're still going to have your selection of you're going to come up with. I can't imagine Dylan Harper falls past 3, so I'm not even going to consider that. But you're going to have your selection of Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, and Konkanippel. And I think one of those 3 players significantly helps out your roster, and fits in well with LaMelo Ball, if that's the plan is to keep him moving forward, which I think it is. And Brandon Miller, who is coming off a really good season, and I think he's going to be really, really good in the NBA. So for Charlotte at 4, and play the hand you're dealt. If you're Charlotte, if you're sitting at Hornet HQ, would you maybe try thinking of taking a high upside player, or are you really looking for a sure we have to hit on this pick?
I don't think they have to hit on this pick. I think you can go high upside. I think of the 3 teams with the best odds that fell, I think Charlotte was the most well-equipped to falling out of the number 1 pick. I think they were the team with the best roster that they didn't need Cooper Flagg to kind of take that next step. Now they're going to need a player or 2 to take that next step, obviously. But I think they're, I don't want to say close, but closer than the other 2 at least. So I think you can err on the side of getting a high upside pick. Now you don't have a lot of time to play with, and you're going to have, let me pull up their contracts here. I'm sure there's going to be some decisions have to be made soon. You got LaMelo under contract for a while, Bridges for the next 2 years. So, I mean, I think you can err high upside here, just for the fact it's a decent roster, and if you can get, good production again from LaMelo, he was out with injury a couple times throughout the year. You can get another good year from Brandon Miller. Maybe it's a midseason trade that puts him over the top, it doesn't have to be the draft pick this year. So I think you can go high upside.
Yeah, because I think on this roster, and you talked about it best, LaMelo is a good player. Grant Williams is a good player. Brandon Miller is a good player. Miles Bridges, not a great character, but a great player. Mark Williams is also a great player. Now, he was supposed to be a Laker this season, but he's still here in Charlotte. I think Nick Smith Jr. still has a lot of upside, and a lot of there's a lot to still talk about, I think, with Nick Smith Jr. So I think that there is, again, a slight foundation here, maybe not as good as they would have expected when they were picking number 3 in, what was it, 2021, 2022, when they took LaMelo Ball. So I don't necessarily hate them at 4 here, like you said, taking a high upside guy. where maybe a hit and Ace Bailey falls to you at 4. I think that that's very possible. It wouldn't shock me if San Antonio takes Dylan Harper and then Philadelphia passes on Ace Bailey. I would not be surprised in the slightest. They're mocked right now here to get VJ Edgecombe, which I think if you can get him at 4 and you want to talk about high upside players that would pair nicely with LaMelo Ball, I think VJ Edgecombe's your guy. And I think he would fit really, really well with this team. Adding another guard to this roster would be really nice. I don't see, like I say, Nick Smith Jr., I think that there's a lot left there with him, but I don't know if he's ever going to be an NBA starter for a competitive basketball team. If you can bring him off the bench and Edgecombe can become your guy, or even you can, move some things around. You want to play a smaller lineup, move him to the 3. I think there's a lot to be said there. And a lot to be desired if they take VJ Edgecombe. And if I'm Charlotte, as much as I wanted Cooper Flagg, as much as I wanted Dylan Harper, I would still be really excited with a guy like VJ Edgecombe.
Yeah, I think so too. I will say though, with Charlotte, I think while they were the best roster of the 3 with the best odds, I do think they are the ones with the most pressure of, we can't keep being, the exciting young team that's about to be something. Like, you have to become something at some point. It can't always just be, you're not going to be, 23, 24, 25 forever. At some point, things are going to have to start clicking. So I think there is still a lot of pressure for them there to like start having some good years. But I don't think they were as in dire need, I guess, if that makes sense.
The way that you view Charlotte, I think, is kind of the way I view Utah. They were the worst team in basketball this past season. I didn't think that was going to, or actually, I take that back. I think maybe I'm backwards here. Anyways, I think that there's a really good foundation here for them to be good. And I think there's pieces there to move. I'm a big Walker Kessler fan. I think he's really, really good. Keontae George, I think, is really good. Kyle Filipowski, I think he can be a solid basketball player here in the NBA. And now you're picking number 5 again. If they're mocked to get Con Knipple, you have a Duke star in Kyle Filipowski paired with a Duke star in Con Knipple. That would be, to me, a home run. And I still think, and I don't want to talk about this too much here because we can talk about the pick a little bit, but there's pieces to move here. If you want to end up moving John Collins, if you want to end up moving Lauri Markkanen to get more capital, to even get younger, there's a lot to be done here with this roster. Don't get me wrong. I think it's maybe time to move on from Colin Sexton and get him going somewhere else. Definitely time to move on from Jordan Clarkson. And I would not be surprised if one of Collins or Markkanen is moved by the time that we're having this conversation next year about the NBA draft. So I'm really intrigued by Utah. I would have loved to have seen them got the first pick, and draft the other Duke star in this draft. But a lot of potential here for Utah, and I'm curious on how you feel about them at number 5.
Yeah, they have, like you said, a lot of flexibility. They got a lot of guys on expiring deals, so there's a number of different directions they can go, and I think that's the biggest thing with Utah is there is a number of directions you can go. You can kind of have a soft reset here and start rebuilding again if you want. I think that Markkanen deal, at the time, it was a great deal. It made all the sense in the world to re-sign him and get him to a long extension. Now it kind of feels like, I don't know if the timeline fits anymore with this. Obviously, if they win the lottery and they get Cooper Flagg, it makes a lot of these problems and a lot of these different options a lot simpler. So I think they're the most intriguing team of the draft. They were the most intriguing team of the lottery just based on all the different directions they could go. In terms of fit here, where you go, maybe guard. I'm not sure exactly who would be the best fit, but like you said, Sexton's on an expiring, Collins is on an expiring. These are guys you could move. Well, John Collins has a player option, but it's still the last year of his deal if he opts into that. So I say probably guard, which Fears is mocked here. I think Fears is another guy who has decent upside, but he's not a sure thing coming out of the draft. Maybe you could go that way, but There's just a lot of question marks on this roster that they're going to have to answer in this offseason, and who knows where they go.
I listen. If I'm Utah and I won 17 games to draft Jeremiah Fears, I'd be pretty disappointed.
Right.
And I think Jeremiah Fears is a great player. I think Jeremiah Fears can be a great player, and he was solid at Oklahoma. But that's just not the. I don't know. I think at 5, you look at the top 5 of Cooper Flag, Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, Con Knipple. I feel like you got to come away with one of these guys. I think realistically, it's going to be Edgecombe or Knipple. Although I think Knipple fits better at 3 and 4. I think he almost fits even better at 5 to Utah. But I don't know. I don't know. It depends on what Philadelphia and Charlotte do. It depends on what San Antonio does as far as who they want to draft. But I'm intrigued here with Utah. I think if we're looking at this top 5, I am almost the most intrigued with Utah. I'm definitely interested to see what Philadelphia does with their selection if they want to trade that away. I'm very intrigued to see what San Antonio does at 2, but I'm really intrigued because I think that Utah has a lot of pieces moving forward, and a lot of pieces that we don't even see yet, like you say, with trades to Sexton, Collins, and Markkanen that could potentially happen. There's a lot of things maybe for this foundation that aren't even there yet. So I'll be really excited to see what they go here. You're going to get a 19, 20-year-old kid, maybe even 18. Who knows? You're going to get a really good player here at 5. So while it isn't Cooper Flag like you wanted it to be, I think Utah is. I do think they're on track. I'm very hopeful for Utah in their future. Moving on that, I do want to talk a little bit about Washington, just because they also had the tied for the highest odds, and now they're sitting at 6. Look, I think they got to go paint presence here. Alex Sarr really stretches the floor. You took him at 2 last season. I didn't really care for how he played down low. I think that this should be one of Derek Queen or Cayman Malawach. I think Malawach is really good. He's 7'2". He's from Duke. I think Derek Queen is also really good, a really good post presence. If you can come away with one of those 2 guys, while it is not Cooper Flag, while it is not Dylan Harper, while it is not Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe, if you could come away with one of those guys, I think you get better. And maybe not as better as you were going to get and you were hoping to get, but I think it would be, that's the right choice here.
I 100% agree with that. I think, Washington, they've got some older guys on their roster, but it feels like they're in a good spot with how they've drafted in previous years, and I think they've got their guards pretty well set.
I'll be taking you the rest of the way here. Rafe's camera's exhausted.
Camera died.
Oh,
well.
What are you supposed to do? I mean, just wrapping up here with Washington, finish your point. You had a point.
I don't even remember what I was saying. Oh yeah, they got their guards set. I think I agree with you. Big guy, paint presence, and that's the way to go here. I would say Chris Middleton probably doesn't accept his player option next year. So I think that's good for Washington to get that contract out of there. I don't think they're necessarily ready for, older guys on higher contracts, still kind of in the midst of a rebuild. But it's a good start for Washington, I think. And that's why I think Utah is so much more intriguing than them, because it feels like they have different ways to go, but Washington, you see the path they're on, and they hit a couple more draft picks, and it feels like they're going to be pretty close in the next couple of years.
I could really see this team going a direction kind of like the Pistons went, where you're going to get off this Malcolm Brogdon contract after the season. You're going to be able to get off of this Chris Middleton contract after the season. That's going to free up a lot of money, and you're already going to be younger, and you're probably not going to be good next year, so you're probably going to have a pretty good draft pick anyways. So when you're looking, when you're looking at the future, and you're looking at the 2026, 2027 season, you're going to have a lot of room to sign a bunch of players similar to how the Pistons did, where they signed Malik Beasley. They went and got Dennis Schroeder. They brought back Tobias Harris, and they were the 5 seed,
Yep.
So I could really see that being kind of the path and the direction that the Wizards go. And I would be really intrigued to see that. You know, it was always fun when Wall and Beal were there and they were, you know, at least in the postseason. And I would love to see that. And I think they've got Kaishan George, Bub Carrington, Jordan Poole, you know, if you want to throw him out there, Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly. And I think adding a real big here, and if you add at Malawach, if you add Derek Queen, whoever you decide to go with, I think that's only going to make this roster that much better.
Yeah.
Well, the camera, I mean, crapped out. That stinks. But you know, what are you supposed
We
to
got
do
close.
here?
We got close.
We did get close. You know.
It's probably my fault because I don't think I keep forgetting to turn the camera off every video we've done since we've started doing videos again. So that's probably on me.
Right. Speaking of videos off camera, is this going to be posted today?
Probably tomorrow because I gotta get the other
Okay.
videos done.
Okay. Thank you guys so much for watching. We've been doing live streams every night after the NBA games wrap up, the playoff games wrap up. We did a live stream for the draft lottery. So we've been going live. We've been doing these videos a little bit. We've been posting a lot on TikTok, been posting a lot on Instagram. Stay tapped in there. Turn post notifications on here, so whenever we do go live, you guys can be tapped in and be here for that. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's a pleasure as always. On behalf of Rafe and myself, it's Off the Tracks.
Yes, sir.
Peace.